Hey everyone, thanks so much for checking out this incredible instrument I've got here with me today, the double bell quarter tone trumpet. I'm super excited to finally have this horn in my possession, and I'm really looking forward to sharing with you all of the special things that it can do. So first up is going to be the capability of the second bell, which I've already prepared here with a mute. Using a mute in one bell and keeping the other open is one of the most effective uses of this modification because the trigger allows for a very easy change between the two bells to change between those two timbres as quickly or slowly as you'd like. And of course, this can be done with all sorts of different mutes. You can do one bell muted and one bell open, both bells with different mutes, both bells open, and for one more extra treat, the second bell actually is repositionable. I can rotate it back over my shoulder, and this creates an echo effect in combination with that quick timbre change. Now, as you've probably never written for one of these things before, if you're a composer watching this, the notation that I find most effective and easiest to read is to use two staves and just designate one as bell 1 and bell 2, designate which one is what mutes or lack of mutes are present at any given time, and which one is going to be played open and which has the trigger depressed. All right, and now for the quarter tone valve, the most recent modification on this horn. The quarter tone trigger allows me to lower the pitch of any note played by a quarter step or half a half step. And it allows me to play fully chromatic with 24 notes per octave. Now, this is a bit more self-explanatory than the second bell and its trigger, but there is a bit of a notational quirk I did want to go over for the composers watching this. Given the fact that the quarter tone valve lowers the pitch when depressed, the preferred notation for this instrument when using quarter tones is that quarter tones are given as descending alterations from a given note rather than ascending. This notation is explored a little bit more in detail in the book that Don Ellis wrote titled Quarter Tones, but his preferred notation used downward arrows, so any natural pitch had either just a downward arrow or a downward arrow and a natural sign preceding the note to show that it is quarter tone flat, and any notes already adjusted with an accidental have a downward arrow preceding the accidental to show that that pitch is a quarter tone flat. And now that we've covered the basic modifications made to this horn, how it differs from the standard trumpet, and everything that it can do, there are a few more techniques that I have available to me that are useful both on the regular trumpet and especially on this instrument, combining it with all the physical things. So I'll go through some of those next. Okay, first up in our list of extended techniques is going to be flutter tonguing. This creates a growly effect in the sound, like so. For the most part, this can be done on any pitch in the trumpet's range, but it does become more difficult the higher it gets into the upper register, as you just heard. And this is especially compounded with starting a note with a flutter on the articulation. This is pretty trivial in the low and mid range. But above the staff, it's going to be much more consistent and easier if the note is begun normally and the flutter is added afterwards. As opposed to attacking directly with the flutter. Next up is the half valve. This technique, pressing the valves partially down, allows glissandos, falls, doits, and other effects that are typically performed with more indefinite pitch than the trumpet is usually capable of. So these can be wide-ranging glissandos with definite start and end points. It can be falls off of a note, doits up from a note, or just about anything that you can conceive of that needs that sort of glissando sound. The other thing we can do with half valve pretty easily is use it to approximate pitch while still having that sort of in-between notes sound. And it's very easy to do that kind of quick vibrato and move around the horn in that half valve. That almost sounds like a parody of trumpet playing. I really like that use of it, but the glisses and everything are fun as well. So now we're getting into the really fun stuff, and next up is tongue rams. The tongue ram doesn't produce sound in the same manner that the trumpet ordinarily does. Rather, with this effect, you get a short burst of resonance with no actual tone, and this is only available in the lowest register of the instrument, so everything from written low C and below. It sounds like this. So there it was on the 7 normal valve combinations going down from low C, but I do have that quarter tone valve available, and that is combinable with the tongue ram, so it gives you a few extra notes. And the biggest limitation with these, other than the range, they're only available in that lowest partial, is speed. It's not easy to execute tongue rams repeatedly for a length of time or at any great speed. The fastest I can do this is about here. Beyond that, it's going to become incredibly difficult due to the increased range of motion needed, differing from a standard articulation. Next on the list is pedal tones. Pedal tones expand the range of the instrument downward below the written low F sharp, which is the lowest real note on a trumpet. These differ vastly depending on the player and what they're capable of. Currently, I'm comfortable down to about a low D, below the bass clef staff in transposed pitch, so a concert C2. Now, the biggest difficulty in pedal tones is going to come in changing between registers, like you saw a bit of there. Once I'm in the pedal register, I can hang out there, but it becomes difficult switching between the pedal register and the regular register of the horn frequently. And now moving on to multiphonics. Multiphonics are most commonly produced on the trumpet by playing one note and singing another simultaneously. few other ways of producing this effect, which we'll get to a little bit later. The big caveat with this is that it is significantly easier to perform multiphonics when the sung note is above the played note. Everything there was either unison or sung above. It becomes very difficult to sing below. That's about the only one that I can do. And of course, this is also limited by range. I'm currently comfortable singing up to about a concert C here. And the other big thing with this is that it becomes more difficult the higher the played note is. I can't sing and play that unison C here, but the lower the played note is, the more variety I have in what I can do with the singing in general. So hopefully that's helpful, and can't wait to see how this effect gets used. And moving on, we've got whisper tones. Whisper tones are a way of creating a very soft dynamic on the instrument. It's almost similar to the tongue rams in a way, where we're just creating that resonance without any actual tone. And that's going to sound like this. It's very easy to kind of flicker between silence and whisper and hints of a fuller, more real sound. And these also do vary in difficulty, somewhat dependent on range. The easiest range for me to do these in is right in the staff. Anything above or below gets a bit more difficult, but it's certainly not impossible. And this is, like I said, very effective changing into silence or a real note. And it doesn't even have to be that flickering. You can go all the way from silence up to full sound with a whisper tone. And back. A really nice effect, and of course this will be combinable with the quarter tones and double bell and all of that as well as you see fit. And finally, we've come to our last couple of techniques, split tones and air sounds. Air sounds are pretty simple. These are just a variety of sounds created by blowing air through the instrument only with no vibration being induced. As you can see, we can manipulate the volume and intensity of the air by increasing or decreasing the speed and quantity of air used, and pitch can also be manipulated with the valves. There's one little quirk to these. They sound a half step higher than whatever valve combination is currently pressed. And so on. So if you want to notate an air sound at any given pitch, just make sure you notate a fingered pitch that's a half step lower. And then finally, split tones. This is the other way to produce multiple notes at once that I mentioned in the Multiphonics demonstration. And with the way these work it's a very complex, unstable sound bordering between two partials. As you can see, they're difficult to produce with any kind of regularity, and certainly don't be afraid to use this effect, but please do reach out, and I'd love to chat with you further if you would like to write for this, because we can discuss what's most practical and convenient for using split tones. Thanks so much again for exploring this wonderful instrument with me, and I absolutely cannot wait to see the repertoire available for this horn continue to grow and grow and grow, and hopefully even some more people getting their very own double bell and or quarter tone instruments.